it's Ruby Lang.
Barb Cormier.
Well, actually, how we got involved was, I'm sure we had the president of the club at the time was Donnie McPhail, who was certainly an old timer, and Donnie passed away, and he just had such a big heart. He helped every kid that wanted to play, and when he passed away, and those of us on the executive took a look at what monies we had, we were in pretty bad shape. And we even had a loan at the bank. And it just looked like Mimico was going to have to close their doors. And because I was talking to Barb about it, and I said, I didn't want to see that happen, you know. So I said, can you help us? Can you come on board? Everybody bailed, because nobody wanted to be responsible for this debt that we had. So anyway, Barb and I kind of rifled through everything, and finally, over time, got that debt paid off, and then we just hung in there and stayed.
I'd go up and watch the odd game. I had never seen lacrosse before. It was my first experience with the game. So I would go and watch at the outdoor box, but it was later on that when we got involved, the two of us became such close friends and lacrosse friends.
My husband's family was involved with lacrosse at that, especially my younger brother-in-law, Norm Gare, and the Gares were involved with Mimico at the time, and young John was involved, and they, of course, persuaded my boys to play, so they played right through Mimico, but there's no grandchildren playing, so yeah.
And I have 3 children. My oldest boy, Chris, played through Mimico, played junior for Etobicoke and for Hamilton. He's now the president of Mimico. My daughter, we had a girls' box lacrosse team in Mimico before girls ever played box. We had a little house league team. So she played lacrosse when she was 7, 8 years old, and married a lacrosse player. Their son, he coached for us right up until midget, till they moved out west. And my youngest boy, Scott, by the way, Sherry was my daughter, Dan, my son-in-law, and my youngest guy, Scott, played up till junior. He played junior B in Mimico and junior A for the beach. And he went on to be a referee. Refereed both field and box. All 3 of my grandsons played. Christopher Tilley finished midget. Peyton, the youngest one, has had quite a career in lacrosse, and he's now on a scholarship at Virginia for field.
We probably had girls playing on our box teams before anybody else in the Lakeshore did. And actually, 2 of our girls went on to play for Notre Dame in field. And I don't know where Julie.
The foot girls.
Yeah.
And we had one girl, Julie, that went down into the States on a scholarship at lacrosse and basketball. So we also had, it was kind of a unique thing, we had deaf kids playing in Mimico. We had 2 teams of, we had one boy that actually was from my street and came on and played lacrosse, played right up till junior B for Etobicoke, and along with him came a lot of friends. So we formed 2 house league teams from the deaf school, and they played house league at Mimico.
I did accounts receivable work before I had a family. After that, I was a stay-at-home mom.
And I worked pretty well most of my working days with Christy Brown and Company on the Lakeshore. Yeah, worked in the office there, and then in the maintenance department in the office.
So, like, between us, yeah. Well, I got a 50-year pin last year at the convention.
and I think mine was 45. We got the plaque last year, the picture.
Very nice.
The OLA, yeah.
I think we were co-hosts of the Pee Wee Nationals one year, and so that was pretty exciting, meeting people from right across Canada. We worked at the first indoor box lacrosse championships, selling the posters. Actually, that Creators Game one is the one that I chose to. We each got to pick up a poster. That was for the CLA.
Yeah.
And
We traveled around for a while doing their posters, selling their posters for them.
yeah,
I think actually, do you know, every game that we went to was special.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you meet so many friends, you know, like they become your family. I think because lacrosse is a community sport. And I had my 80th birthday party last year, and when I look back, I think half of the people that were there were lacrosse friends. You know, and it was pretty exciting being inducted into the Hall of Fame for sure, and into our own club Wall of Fame.
Accolades that come with that sort of thing bother me because
Yeah.
it's not something that I've ever done to get a trophy for. So I sort of thank you, and it's very nice, but it's much more memorable when I go to a game, say in I don't know, Barrie, and a coach will come up to me and he played in Mimico, or you go to Mississauga and a coach will come up and he's from Mimico. So it's that sort of thing. It's
Yeah.
pretty special.
Well, I think other than family, that's, I think, the greatest achievement.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Raising 3 kids and them turning out to be pretty reliable kids is a plus. I used to, when I worked at Christie's, I was involved with unions, so that was kind of a pat on the back when you signed a good contract for a bunch of people, or, you know. But lacrosse has been like major.
Well, I think one of the big things was when our club celebrated 100 years, we put on a big party in the arena on the floor. We had a game with Brampton, and the 2 teams that have played together, and we had a table, we had a disc jockey, we had a buffet on the floor, and I think there was over 500 people.
Wow.
Over 500 people there.
Well, first of all, I think community. I think that's the basis of lacrosse, is because it is a community sport. We were talking. I had looked up the Drummond Street Bowl, where Mimico plays out of now, was built in 1931. It was a dirt floor, and that was the year the CLA made box lacrosse their game.
Yeah.
So Mimico built the box. So from 1931 until present day, Mimico is still playing out of that same arena. They had a roof put on it, and they had benches put in or seating put in, but that's still the same arena from 1931, and it's pretty well the same area that the kids are coming to play from. You know,
Yeah.
so it's community. It keeps the sport going.
There are other clubs, I mean, that were strong, Etobicoke and, you know, Rexdale in Long Branch,
Yeah.
that kind of floundered, and but that again, that was Donnie McPhail. I remember when they wanted us to become Etobicoke, everybody, the Lakes, Long Branch, Alderwood, Mimico, join up with Rexdale and become this real Etobicoke powerhouse. And Donnie didn't want that to happen. He just told us it was all up to us around the table to place a vote. But as far as he was concerned, he wanted to keep Mimico going until we didn't have enough kids to floor teams. And at that time, we would close our doors and the kids could go wherever they wanted to go. And it was just that everybody around that table voted against. And we were scrounging for players, literally. We waited outside the school gates and handed out registration forms in hopes of getting enough kids to floor enough teams to, you know, to pay the bills and keep us going. And we did. So I hope they keep up that spirit, you know, and yeah, for sure. I would hate to see, I don't know what I'd do with my summers.
Personally, I think the game has progressed as far as players and on a pretty even keel, and pretty well everything that has been done for a good purpose. You know, it's been we were talking about the helmets, and you know, that was a good thing at the time. It wasn't. I guess probably the padding is a good thing, you know, so it makes the sport that much more maybe enjoyable and less dangerous or whatever, you know. But I think lacrosse has progressed pretty well on the road.
Lacrosse has always had its kind of valleys and hills, and it always seems to come back up.
Hopefully as good as it is now, you know, hopefully as good. I think probably field has had a big imprint on lacrosse. Field is something that we didn't do in Mimico while we were there. We just didn't have time. So kids that wanted to play field, we shipped them off to Brampton. They played field in Brampton. But the last 2 or 3 executives that have come on, they've been big into field, and we've got some good field players out of Mimico. I was counting up before coming here, and I think there's something like 12 kids coming out of Mimico that are in university this year on field scholarships. So that's a plus. Yeah.
That's a big plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if they really want to play, then I don't think there's any reason why they can't. But I think women playing on their own team is much more favorable than, you know, one girl going out to play on a boys' field team. If there was no such team, well, then it certainly wouldn't hurt. But I think at all times, if you can have a girls' team, by all means. And nowadays, that women are much more, what's the word I'm trying to think of? They're doing those things. It's not just 1 or 2 girls. You know, there's numerous girls that want to play lacrosse, so there's enough to have a league, and so I think that's a plus.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of girls playing box. We've always had like a working relationship with the juniors within our club anyway, right from the get-go. Actually, we used to. They would use our floor. We would pay our floor time, and we let them use it. So we sort of always worked in conjunction with each other. We encouraged the junior players to come out when we'd have a camp, you know, and some of them have coached. Yeah.
The only thing I find with the amalgamation, and the one thing that bothers me, is when we go to convention and there's an amendment comes up, and there are far more minor people there than juniors, and we're still voting on their amendments. And that kind of bothers me, because unless these people are smart and are out doing a bit of campaigning the night before, I mean, the minors could carry the whole situation, and you know, so that is about the only thing that I find that I don't care about the amalgamation.
Well, probably Brendan Shanahan, for one, who's now the general manager for the Toronto Maple Leafs, David Boland, who went on to play for the Chicago Blackhawks and won the Stanley Cup twice with them.
Smith brothers, two of the Smith brothers. One's playing for Nevada, and the other one I think is down in Florida. Oh my goodness.
we've had,
And as far as, I mean, if you went through the CLA Hall of Fame, there are numerous Mimico players. The Gates, there's who, I'm trying to think now.
well, the Gates is
No,
one from,
yeah, not Mimico.
unfortunately.
What's Norm Gare, the Gare brothers, and Donnie McPhail's in there. Porky Russell,
The Dixons.
the Dixons, yeah. There's and
yeah.
Billy Foot's on, and
Yeah.
his father Jack Foot coached for us for years.
Actually, probably the Rock.
I think the Rock had a lot to do with it. I think
Yeah.
it brought lacrosse into the television world. It you know it made a bit of an increase in the kids.
I guess too, before them, the Tomahawks, you know, because I can remember taking my kids down to Tomahawk games, and and a lot of our players played, like
Yeah.
Guy Cody, and a lot of them played for, I think he played for Montreal.
Montreal, yeah. Keith
Yeah.
Goby
Keith Goby, yeah.
played goalie for Montreal, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was that was kind of a an exciting time, and we were sorry to see that league kind of not go any further. But when the Rock came, I think that's when it built up a lot of interest. When the pro league,
If parents can see that there's a road ahead to something, you know, then they're going to
Yeah.
bring their kids out to participate, right? And I think that's got a lot to do with it. Unfortunately, you got to play to the parents before you get the kids. Because I used to always say to Ruby, if we had a kid for 1 year playing lacrosse, he might leave to go play baseball, but he'd be back the year after, and it sort of worked that way. You know, if they didn't come and stay, they'd leave for a year or so, and then they'd come back. So I think it meant a lot to them. Yeah. Oh goodness.
oh, couldn't even pick. I don't know, but I can remember when it was an open box in Mimico, and our president at the time, Donnie McPhail, was good friends with Gaylord Powless, and Gaylord came one Saturday. It was like a celebrity was in town. Every kid was there getting their shirts signed, their sticks signed, and balls signed, and he was showing them little tricks. And I think he certainly isn't from our club, but he certainly made lacrosse interesting. I just I think it's just been a great pastime for not just me, but for my family. My boys played, they coached, and it's been a big part of our life, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I think so too. I think it's been a real social
Yeah.
outlook for all of our family. My husband was never a lacrosse player, and he was never. He'd come to a game, but it was sort of, you know, come along, you got to see this game sort of thing. But he was always home babysitting or cooking dinner while I was at that lacrosse box, because it was 4 days a week, you know, rise or shine, we were there, you know, so.
Not only that, but that was our summers, because like we made a point, Barb and I have always, if any teams were out of town at tournaments, one of us was always there. And yeah, it became a big part, like every night of the week except for Friday, we were at the lacrosse box. And Barb on Saturday did the house league, and yeah, so it was pretty much your whole summer. We used to joke and say our tournaments were our summer holidays, you know. This little doll, our supplier, our shirt supplier, did our logo on the front. And we had her sitting in the ticket booth when we helped to host the Pee Wee Nationals. And so all the teams that came in from across Canada all put a pin on her headband. So that so she's kind of been around for a long time. And and when prior, actually, that picture that you have there, Barb and I were both honored with streets being named for us in Toronto.
Really?
Yeah. And this is a picture of David Boland with the Stanley Cup from the Chicago Blackhawks. And our counselor at the time took him up, had him stand under our names, our signs, our street signs, and take a picture. And
This is Ruby Lang Lane and Cormier Circle.
That's unbelievable.
And that is actually, Barb has one of these too. This was a certificate that was presented to me by Morley Kells when he was our MPP. And just recognizing at that time 31 years of involvement in lacrosse. Yeah.
I just would like to say that the kids or the men and women that are running the club now are doing an excellent job. So hopefully they will get as much out of lacrosse as we did and continue to do so.
Yeah, I sure hope Mimico carries on for years to come in double blue. For sure.